The HOA security patrol strutted down our street in tactical vests they'd bought off Amazon, radios buzzing with static, plastic badges gleaming in the afternoon sun. One of them, beer belly straining against Velcro, actually drew a pistol and pointed it at my wife as she unloaded groceries from our SUV. The problem was that my wife didn't flinch. She set down a watermelon with deliberate calm, cracked her knuckles, and whispered in a voice that could freeze blood, "Wrong house, buddy. My name is Ethan Mullally, and I'm a history teacher who bought a home in Birwood Bluff for its quiet cul-de-sacs and hiking trails." I kept to myself, mowing the lawn every Saturday, tinkering with old motorcycles in my garage, and enjoying bonfires with my wife, Maya, on cool autumn evenings. We moved here 3 years ago, seeking peace after Maya retired from active duty. What we got instead was Carolyn Sturgis, HOA president and wannabe sheriff of suburbia. Carolyn had this fantasy of transforming the HOA into a paramilitary force. She called it the Birwood Bluff Safety Corps, complete with laminated ID cards and matching navy polo shirts with embroidered badges. Everyone else called it Carolyn's cosplay militia. At first, it seemed harmless enough, just another bored suburban power trip. Carolyn was the type who measured grass with a ruler and sent violation notices if your mailbox numbers weren't regulation font size. The escalation started slowly. First came fake tickets slipped under windshields for parking violations that didn't exist. Then checkpoint cones appeared at the neighborhood entrance every Friday night. Carolyn's crew began patrolling with walkie-talkies, accusing joggers of loitering and warning teenagers about gang activity, in a neighborhood where the biggest crime was someone stealing Amazon packages. They carried clipboards and citation books, documenting every perceived infraction with the dedication of actual law enforcement. I ignored most of it until the safety corps cited my wife for unauthorized carrying of grocery bags in common areas. The citation, printed on official-looking paper with the HOA logo, demanded a $50 fine for creating a potential hazard by transporting items through the community park path. When I laughed and threw it in the recycling, Carolyn doubled down at the next HOA meeting, telling her crew that Maya looked suspicious and should be monitored closely. What Carolyn didn't know, what none of them knew, was that Maya spent 15 years as a Navy SEALs hand-to-hand combat instructor. She could disarm a man faster than most people could open a bag of chips. Maya had trained elite soldiers in close-quarters combat, teaching them techniques that could neutralize threats in seconds. She'd served in classified operations I still didn't have clearance to know about. Now, she taught self-defense classes at the community center, keeping her skills sharp while helping others feel safe. The night everything exploded started like any other Tuesday. Maya was returning from the grocery store around 8 p.m., parking in our driveway and popping the trunk to unload. I was inside grading papers when I heard the commotion through the open window. 3 members of Carolyn's safety corps had surrounded our driveway, flashlights blazing like they were conducting a drug bust. One of them, a guy named Brad who sold insurance during the day and played soldier at night, was shouting about suspicious activity and demanding to see Maya's HOA identification card. Maya, calm as always, continued unloading groceries while explaining she lived here and didn't need to show anything to fake security guards. That's when Brad, in his infinite wisdom, decided to escalate the situation. The idiot in cargo shorts and tactical vest actually pulled a handgun from his hip holster, pointing it at my wife while yelling, "Show me your HOA now." The other 2 patrol members stepped back, suddenly realizing their colleague had crossed a line they hadn't anticipated. Maya moved so fast that Brad didn't have time to blink. In one fluid motion, she stepped inside his reach, twisted his wrist, stripped the weapon, and had him face first on the pavement with his arm locked behind his back. She calmly unloaded the weapon with practiced efficiency, checked the chamber, removed the magazine, and then handed the pieces back to Brad's trembling colleague. Her voice was steady but carried an edge that made everyone freeze. "Next time, bring a real badge. And if any of you point a weapon at me again, this tutorial gets a lot less friendly." The entire confrontation lasted maybe 15 seconds, but several doorbell cameras caught every moment in high-definition video. Within minutes, neighbors who had witnessed the scene were calling 911, reporting armed individuals threatening residents. The Real police arrived with lights and sirens, filling our quiet street with actual authority. Officers quickly assessed the situation and realized Carolyn's HOA patrol was running around with unlicensed firearms, impersonating officers, and detaining residents without cause. I barely had to say a word because the videos from multiple angles spoke for themselves. The lead officer, a sergeant named Davidson, looked increasingly frustrated as he reviewed the footage on neighbors' phones. He ordered his officers to begin collecting weapons, radios, and those ridiculous laminated Birwood Bluff security cards, while Carolyn, who had rushed to the scene, shouted about sovereign neighborhood authority and her right to maintain order in her community. She actually tried to cite the officer for parking in a resident-only zone. Brad was arrested on the spot for brandishing a firearm and assault with a deadly weapon. 2 other Safety Corps members were cited for impersonating police officers. Carolyn herself was detained for questioning after she tried to prevent officers from confiscating the patrol's equipment, claiming it was private HOA property protected by community bylaws. The sergeant had to explain 3 times that HOA rules didn't supersede state and federal law. Maya gave her statement with military precision, documenting every detail of the encounter. When asked about her defensive response, she simply stated she felt threatened when a firearm was pointed at her and responded with the minimum necessary force to neutralize the threat. The officer taking her statement, a former Marine, recognized her training immediately and asked if she'd served. When she mentioned her background, his entire demeanor shifted to one of deep respect. The next HOA meeting was scheduled for the following week, and word had spread through Birwood Bluff like wildfire. The community center was packed with residents who normally never attended. Carolyn tried to rally her supporters, standing at the podium with her remaining Safety Corps members flanking her like a defeated general's honor guard. She began with a prepared speech about community safety and the need for vigilance, but the crowd, now fully aware their security patrol had drawn a gun on a Navy SEAL instructor, wasn't having it. Someone in the back actually laughed when Carolyn mentioned the importance of proper security protocols. Another resident asked if she'd be holding auditions for Season 2 of her cop show. A teenager with a smartphone played the doorbell camera footage on the projector screen, showing Maya's lightning-fast disarmament of Brad for everyone to see clearly. The board called for an immediate vote of no confidence. Carolyn tried to object, citing obscure bylaws and procedural rules, but the community had seen enough. The vote was unanimous except for Carolyn herself and her vice president, who abstained. She was removed from her position effective immediately, banned from holding any HOA office again, and informed that the Safety Corps was permanently dissolved. Meanwhile, the legal consequences were mounting. Brad faced felony charges for assault with a deadly weapon and criminal impersonation. His bail was set at $25,000. 3 other patrol members were charged with misdemeanor impersonation of peace officers, each facing up to a year in jail and $5,000 fines. Carolyn herself was charged with conspiracy and inciting criminal impersonation, along with creating a public nuisance. The civil lawsuits began rolling in the following week. Maya filed for harassment and emotional distress. Other residents who had been wrongfully detained or cited by the fake patrol joined a class action suit against Carolyn personally and the HOA's insurance. The HOA's liability insurance company immediately dropped coverage, stating that operating an unauthorized security force violated their policy terms. During the criminal proceedings, it came out that Carolyn had spent over $30,000 of HOA funds on equipment for her Safety Corps without board approval. This included tactical vests, radios, patrol vehicles, which were just golf carts with light bars, and even a small office she'd set up as a command center in the community building. She'd been embezzling funds through fake vendor payments to supply her operation. The district attorney added embezzlement and fraud charges to Carolyn's growing list. Her lawyer tried to argue she believed she was acting in the community's best interest, but the prosecutor presented email evidence showing Carolyn knew she was exceeding her authority and had instructed patrol members to lie if questioned by real police. One email actually said, "Remember, "We're just concerned citizens conducting neighborhood watch activities if anyone asks." Brad took a plea deal, receiving 2 years probation and 300 hours of community service in exchange for testifying against Carolyn. He lost his insurance license and had to pay $10,000 in fines. The other patrol members received lighter sentences of probation and fines ranging from $1,000 to $3,000 each. But Carolyn, as the ringleader, faced the full weight of the charges. The trial lasted 3 days. Maya testified with the same calm precision she'd shown that night, explaining how she perceived a genuine threat to her life when an armed individual demanded papers she wasn't required to provide. The prosecutor played the video evidence repeatedly, showing how Carolyn's patrol had terrorized the neighborhood for months before the incident. Character witnesses described how she'd turned a peaceful community into a paranoid surveillance state. Carolyn's defense fell apart when her own patrol members testified against her. They revealed she'd told them they had arrest powers, that she'd encouraged them to carry weapons for their protection, and that she'd created fake legal documents to make their citations look official. One member admitted Carolyn had promised them they'd eventually be recognized as an official auxiliary police force by the city, a complete fabrication. The jury deliberated for less than 2 hours. Carolyn was found guilty on all counts, including embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy to impersonate peace officers, and inciting criminal acts. The judge, clearly frustrated by what he called a dangerous fantasy that put innocent lives at risk, handed down his sentence. Carolyn received 3 years in state prison, $50,000 in fines, and was ordered to pay full restitution to the HOA for the embezzled funds. When the sentence was read, Carolyn's face went white as paper. She stood frozen at the defendant's table, her mouth opening and closing without sound, as if she couldn't process that her suburban empire had led to actual prison time. Her hands shook as the bailiff approached with handcuffs, and she finally managed to whisper that this wasn't supposed to happen, that she was just trying to keep everyone safe. The judge's gavel came down with finality, and Carolyn was led away in tears.